The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode is the Bad Batch Report.
Dum, 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 dum.
Drums and a little bit of haunting guitar, or is that the scream of the Zillo baby? Exciting questions to be asked. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw. The person making noises with their mouth is Ken Napzok. Are you excited to talk Zillo babies?
I am very excited. I was excited from the opening frame of this episode. You just knew from the moment it showed up.
Yeah, that's a really great place to start our discussion, because I can't wait to start talking about the Zillo baby. There was a flash in one of the trailers I think maybe made people think maybe we will finally get a continuation of this Clone Wars story. Did you enjoy having like a good half this episode screaming at the screen going, "It's the Zillo Beast, it's the Zillo Beast"?
Oh, I did. And you know, we all had that feeling it was coming back. And then you had the other episode where we found, the tech, the monster that we thought maybe was going to be used to fight the Zillo Beast. Some of that speculation going back to Celebration. So I didn't give up the hope for certain. But I halfway through the episode, you're like, well, it could. He's tiny. It could be something else. But in your heart, you know.
It was just so fun to watch an episode where the characters didn't yet know what they were encountering. Just like, it's kind of the fun of these kind of stories. This story is season 2, episode 11. Metamorphosis is the title, written by Sabira Prezada, directed by Saul Ruiz. Continuing story editor credit to Matt Michenovitz. The last couple of weeks, we've really been noting that while there is a team of Star Wars animation veterans all around this, the individual written by credit has been a lot of people who are new to Star Wars, often a little bit young in their career, and given a shot at Star Wars. How did you feel about this week?
Great. I love the new names showing up. Like we say, that lets you kind of learn about new voices and talent. And I like the mix of the veterans, old and new, a Star Wars theme indeed. And I think that's kind of how you do this.
Yeah, and it seems like Disney Plus continues to be a place where it's a place to grow relationships with Disney, which is great, since this author did also work on Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel. So clearly somebody who is becoming a part of the Disney family.
Yeah. Hey, it is the nature of it. That's great. I didn't know that. Having not watched those shows, but it's like, yeah, maybe you go down the hallway and say, I've got some other ideas. I love that.
Hey, I've been hearing some rumblings about the Zillo Beast. Are we gonna do a Zillo baby episode? All right. I want it. Totally imagining things, but a great job on the script. Ken, what was your viewing experience? When did you choose to watch this one, since we have the screeners and we're not waiting for the midnight experience?
Well, it's funny. We're releasing this one after Mando, but before watching it, right? So that midnight experience is reserved for my friend Grogu. But this was a watch over the weekend, and it was one of those fun ones. And I'll say, I pat myself in the back. I do a pretty good job of not having a bleep-eaten grin when you watch something cool that others haven't seen, but you also want to just explode at the seams and be like, hey! Only one person asked me, and that's the only person I told. They asked directly, so that's it. Everyone else, I just kind of sat there virtually quiet.
They asked you directly if it is a Zillo Beast episode?
No, they're just hey, I want what's going on? What's going on this episode? What's going on next week? And I was like, all right, I'll tell you. But it was good. It was releasing the pressure on my pressure cooker, because I just love this episode so much, and I want everyone to see it.
So you were able to just shout it out. That's great. Yeah, this has been a very weird and continuing to be a weird moment of Star Wars releases. As we say every week, we're really lucky to have these screeners. The screeners for Bad Batch go up until episode 14 out of 16. That the final 2 episodes, 15 and 16, I believe, air on Wednesday the 29th. But our screeners end on March 12th. So we're going to be in this weird position where we're going to have pre-watched multiple episodes of the Bad Batch so we can give our full midnight experience attention to The Mandalorian. We were extremely lucky to be able to do that. But it is just also kind of head spinny about like, hey, I really just want to give full focus to each bit of Star Wars, but I got to kind of collect it up in these weird ways. How are you feeling about that?
Look, I'm going to be probably brutally honest. If I was part of the Bad Batch team, I'd be pissed. I'd be absolutely pissed. My work is now clearly going to be pushed aside for the bigger show. It's just the way of it. I don't care about the algorithms, release times, the research, which I'm sure is great on where to put it. I know it. Even for working to 5 Media, we could not release a Screen Junkies video without the exact second being approved by a team. I get it. Totally get it. I'd be upset. This is a great episode, and no one's going to stay up to watch this one first. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm assuming. So we'll get through it. There's tougher things in life. But
there are, much tougher things in life. Not really complaining for myself, but more for the wanting to give the full focus and wanting everybody who is interested in both shows to be able to give them their full focus.
It just to me does send it's versus like She-Hulk versus Kenobi or something. That's a different, you could argue it's different properties. You know, I don't watch Marvel, so I wasn't a conflict for me. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Vice versa, a direction. But this comes across as a little bit of a message, whether intended or not.
Yeah, I mean, it was Ms. Marvel and Kenobi.
See, that's my point.
Which is, Anyway, not going to get into that, but I agree with you. I feel like, maybe there are some analytics that prove this is great. I know some listeners have said, I don't mind. I love watching one back to back, and all respect to that opinion. But for me, I agree with you. I don't care how correct the numbers are. To me, this is I feel the spirit of my father. This is common sense. There's 6 more days in the week. What the hell? That's how I feel.
Yes, indeed. You have your own. This is why you build your own network. You're not, you don't have Cartoon Network, CBS, Fox, ABC. No one's telling you what to do. No one's telling you what to do.
Yeah, I'm so excited for The Mandalorian, which by the time everybody's listening, we will have seen. But at the time we're recording, we haven't seen. I'm very excited for it. Nothing against Mandalorian, but this was a fabulous episode of Bad Batch, and I really don't want it to get lost in the shuffle. So let's dive in and discuss this great episode. Well, actually, I did want to share my viewing experience real quick. I normally wait until Friday or Saturday morning. When we recorded our Bad Batch episode last Wednesday, I just couldn't wait. And as soon as we got done recording, I watched this episode. And then again, this morning as we record, because I couldn't wait. It was that exciting. Yeah. All right. Now we'll get into overall reaction to the episode, to Metamorphosis. Where did you go with this? Love it, like it, struggle with it, love, struggle. How did it go for you?
I absolutely love this one. And look, I am someone who I respect the horror genre, and I think this is Star Wars horror indeed. And horror films often tell tales of oppression, society's failings and ills, and how those in need and maybe all of us can survive it. Right? That's kind of the overall thing that I really believe in. I just don't love it as a genre. I'm not interested in the look and the feel and getting scared. It's never been my thing. But man, I really appreciate it when Star Wars plays around with genres, and this right from the start. And I do want to Kevin Kiner's music. We talk about it a lot. We talk about it every week. Sometimes, at the end, we want to throw it. It was just top notch all the way through. It really captured the vibe and was pulled in from the start. Just had that the gif of anyone eating popcorn while watching a fight out there had that vibe. No notes taken. I just sat back, ate, and watched it, and every little jump worked for me. And love what they pulled off. But again, you talk about cameos and characters and Dungy and Cody. Like you and I said up top, everyone was kind of waiting for the Zillo Beast. A lot of Clone Wars fans waiting for the Zillo Beast. And you got a character, again, it's not the Zillo Beast, but a Zillo Beast. Man, it just pulled off so well.
Yeah. Yes and no, it was cloned. So a little bit of delightful ambiguity. No, yeah. I totally agree with you. There were things I loved on multiple levels about this episode. And one is just that great Star Wars genre stew that Star Wars can pull from lots of different kinds of genres. There's a love of genre and celebrating them and interpreting them through the filter of Star Wars. And this one was so great at that because the original Zillo Beast episodes are such a tribute to monster movies, to kaiju movies in particular, to to Godzilla, to the original Japanese Godzilla, where the monster is explicitly related to real life worries, anxieties, angers, the history of the nuclear atrocity and what can come of it. So I love that this follow up to those classic episodes of the Clone Wars is a different kind of horror in a way that it starts off is almost more of an homage at this point to movies that came out after the original Star Wars. This one felt like the first half was like, we're riffing on 1979's Alien movie with the ship and something that's a little bit more unknown and eating in people out of the blue and the creeping through the corridors and all that great sort of space horror of Alien. And then it moves very much into the absolutely classic kaiju movie King Kong stuff with the frightened villagers terrified of a misunderstood beast. And I really agree with you. I think it's tapping into something that horror does well of horror is often in support of the other, the outsider. Sometimes the monster is sympathetic. Sometimes even if the monster isn't necessarily sympathetic, it's kind of coded as something that, is different and is being hunted for being different. Yeah. But this one is entirely, this beast was tortured and is just trying to survive. And that speaks to lots of, big and important ideas in real life. And I think it's reflected in other parts of the storytelling as well.
Yeah. The most sympathetic moment was when they put him in that water tube. And the fear is like, no.
Yeah. It's also just like great Star Wars high fantasy, a little bit of urban fantasy by the time, you get to that shot where the Zillo Beast is getting the electricity. It's a giant armored lizard sucking power from a tower under an alien moon. Like, that's what I'm here for. Very excited by those aesthetics. And then a couple other like big picture things that made this episode to me just feel like a dream come true is the number of threads that were picked up. Not only the Zillo Beast thread, where in the Clone Wars, Palpatine wanted to clone it, and we never knew where that went, but of refocusing on Omega's past and her importance, the return of the clone commandos and Scorch in particular, possible long-term connections to Palpatine's own cloning plans. There was so many threads picked up, and a big one that I want to talk about more depth, but I want to mention it right away is the great Hunter patience payoff. We've been talking for weeks about, hey, are the Bad Batch going to make a bigger decision? Hunter's the one who's kind of been making the argument of we just need to put our heads down, stay safe, take care of our own, stay alive, not get too involved. Echo leaves because there isn't enough forward movement of the Bad Batch helping people. And it builds to this episode where that shot of Hunter stopping on the ship, the shot of his back building up the tension, and then he says, send the information to Rex and Echo. It's a cheer moment like Kino Loy's Never More Than 12 in Andor. And I think it's a cheer moment because we built up to it. Did you feel that level of payoff from Hunter?
Yeah, I really did. I think that's a lot what's going on in this episode and the kind of push in on Omega, kind of taking it all in and a smile. We can talk about not love, but I appreciate the way this character Omega was affected in this episode. There were some really powerful moments, I thought, for me, just exposing her heart, but also the pain she feels in it sometimes. So that moment really worked for me. And the turnaround and from starting with the Sid stuff, which had some comical moments, but also just some like, yeah, man, F off, to that. It's working quite well for me. The payoff, like you said, sometimes a little patience is rewarded.
Yeah. It was a great cheering moment. I literally cheered. Let's get into the big theme, the ideas at stake in this episode. I'm very curious to see how you sort of categorize some of the ideas, because you kind of already said one of the ways that I categorize the main theme, which is F off.
Yeah.
I thought there was a big theme of almost every character who we are spending time with, who we are sympathetic to, has been pushed too far. I think that's what made this episode really exciting. It was a breaking point or a cracking point for lots of characters. Did you feel that? And if so, how did you kind of think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's this overriding theme of change. Hey, it's called Metamorphosis. Whoa, okay. Loved all that. But everyone from, we got the Prime Minister showing up. We got Nalase. Everyone's kind of being pushed to the brink or has been pushed to the brink, sometimes by the Empire, but individually the characters have the moments. And I thought, again, going back to like the Omega stuff, we see her heart in this great moment of, no, the crew's not dead. The crew might not be dead. They could be trapped inside. We got to go. How many times have we seen that from her, right? But then learning not only their fate, but the how of it, actually just chilling her and freaking her out a little bit, but also probably cementing of why we help people. All of it kind of worked for me. And I even I got where they went with the Sid thing, but I kind of wanted that moment there, but I think it works there. But you know what I mean? Like you're just kind of rooting for them to be like, no, man, this is what you do in real life too. So eventually you just go, I got nothing for you anymore. And, but then there's some realities in tech, bring it up. It could be problematic to break away. So anyways, I agree overall. You really agree with that statement there, that the breaking points have been found.
Yeah. I think the Bad Batch and Sid is a fascinating breaking point, because I think this is the big, the cracking noise, and I think there'll be the explosion next week is my guess. I could be wrong. I haven't watched that episode yet. But I thought it was, meaningful that, Hunter does not argue about going back, which I feel like in past times he would have. He would have said like, hey, we need money. We need to survive. We need to keep our head down, blah, blah, blah. But Hunter's the one who quite aggressively says, what makes you think we'd come back at all? It really did feel like a true, like she has pushed them too far. And even Sid is surprised. Like you almost get the point of like, Sid's like that Hunter guy needs to protect his family. So I got him hooked forever. And Sid even seems a little like, oh, maybe I did push him too far. And I love that tech suggests breaking things off in a diplomatic manner. So there isn't even an argument of maybe we should go back to Sid.
Right.
It's we have to extricate ourselves from this. This isn't cool, but she knows too much about us, which I thought was really great setup for what came at the end of the episode, that they're going to be hunted by Scorch in the Clone Commandos and our new baddie Hemlock, because their ship was there, but now also knowing that Omega is wanted in particular to manipulate Nalase, it suddenly makes this interpersonal thing between the Bad Batch and Sid have these incredibly high stakes. She also said, don't bother to come back if you didn't salvage anything valuable. So they're going back to Sid, if they even go, with nothing but a target on their backs and probably wanted. So it's really, to me, setting up a showdown with Sid.
Well, yeah, especially you have what Malegi had warned them on. And if Sid is faced with helping them or turning them in for reward or safety or something like that, yeah, that's just going to be part of the questions. But to your big point of now, especially at the end, the stakes have been raised. It all comes back to Omega, who she was and how she got here. And I think that just adds a lot of value to the story the next few days.
Yeah. And I can imagine Sid getting real hard-nosed with Hunter, but I wonder if there is a question of, hey, when it's turning you bozos in, maybe, but the kid, if that will be a breaking point for Sid.
Yeah, could be. Because I'm still rooting for. Again, Sid's I think a great character, and I think it's obviously because we have a affinity for Rhea Perlman herself from our Tear Scams days. So I'm rooting for some sort of redemption for her story as well.
Yeah,
change.
I would love that. I would love for there to be big conflict, and then for her to look at Omega and not be able to push the button, or have to come and do some work herself to try to help Omega, that kind of thing. I think this theme of being pushed too far is very clear in the relationship between the Caminoans and the Empire. Destroying somebody's planet is a good way to push people too far. But I really like what was set up, that there was some sort of relationship between Nalase and Dr. Royce Hemlock, that there was a little bit of appeal to that familiarity, and that, we're both scientists, such amazing work. And I love Nalase's quote of, I am not especially motivated to continue my work after the Empire destroyed my civilization.
Yes. A little bit.
Yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know. For me, it was just this whole energy of, no, you have pushed me too far. Maybe I'm working through some things via the Bad Batch, but that's what art does. It was powerful. I also just want to ask your take on the Zillo Beast itself. In many classic monster movies, the beast is not malevolent. It's just home has been invaded. It's being captured. It's being attacked. It misunderstands and thinks it's being attacked. But the whole vibe for me was that it was entirely misunderstood. It doesn't make any move against the villagers. It's not really on a rampage. It's feeding off the electricity when it escapes. I kind of think that it is only eating the crew because they were a threat, there wasn't anything explicit in the episode, but I just kind of assumed that this poor creature had not had a good life, lots of probing, lots of zapping, and this was revenge and or I need to stop these people in order to be safe. How did you feel about that?
I think it ties into what you're saying earlier, right? A breaking point indeed, that we just probably didn't see it. It happened off camera as the episode begins, and that wonderful way, which is very much the Star Wars going, hey, we're gonna start this like a horror film or Stranger Things season 1. Like, it's the same kind of vibe, and I think that really works. But I'm with you on that. And again, maybe it's because I just as an animal lover in the real world, and even the Zillo Beast in the Clone Wars, it didn't emerge and attack. It was kind of awoke. It was kind of nudged
by weapons testing. Yes.
Yeah. So there's something to that. And I think you make a great point about, it's certainly causing problems in the village, but it's not out there, and I get the Bad Batch is trying to stop it because they just don't know, which I think ties into some other things we can discuss. But yeah, I'm with you. I am, this poor creature had no choice but to become what it is. And I think that's, could be a lesson maybe the Empire could learn, maybe.
Yeah. I would think so. Yeah, I think it really, everything about it really invited, what did they do to this poor sentient being before it snapped? That this is, especially when we realize, it needs electricity. It unlike a Tech's assumption, it doesn't appear to be eating the crew out of hunger, but this is the best way to make you go away.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of the, I have that in the action section too, but I won't talk about it here. But that's a great shot.
Oh, it is truly, truly amazing. We talked about the Bad Batch in general being pushed too far, but I did want to zero in on Hunter himself. I wanted to ask you if you think Hunter is affected by everything that's happening to him. Obviously, he's been pressured by Echo in particular, but also by Omega we should be helping people. Tech has reminded us, the audience, last week that everywhere they go, they see some kind of horror. And almost always it is either directly the Empire or fallout from the Empire's cruelty across the galaxy. And we've seen multiple episodes now where an innocent being is terrified to see the Bad Batch because somebody else wearing armor like them has terrorized them. Gungi and the Zillo baby, and I'm sure there are other examples. What in that whole stew do you think is finally turning Hunter and making him go, enough is enough?
I think Hunter's a fascinating character, and I think I love Wrecker, you love Tech, and we love all the Batch, but I think Hunter, we haven't spent as much time discussing, and there's a part of Hunter I love where he is what you want as a leader. He's a little bit unaffected by some of the stuff around him because he's true to himself or true to what he thinks his mission is, and he's doing good. And there's a moment with Dr. Hemlock, and now let's say that I think ties to what you're saying there. This great quote from Jimmy Simpson, McPoyle Brothers Unite. Dr. Hemlock says, "Why does someone so talented prefer to rot in a cell instead of using their gift to better the galaxy?" Right, and that made me think of a lot of stuff in the real world, and a lot of people out there claiming to help, and you could say a lot of people from different angles trying to help. But for me, you got to follow that string out to the end to see what the end result is. And what Dr. Hemlock's talking about leads to the Emperor's purpose. And for Hunter on the other side, someone with great skills, someone who is not rotting in a cell, but choosing to just survive and keep Omega safe. And we're doing runs for Sid, but it's building. I think he's asking himself this question. I have these gifts. We have this ability. We're seeing these things. What am I going to do to make the galaxy better? And I think he's not hearing Dr. Hemlock say that, but I think that's one of the things here, because obviously change, metamorphosis, all that kind of stuff. We got the Bad Batch going through change. I think this episode also addresses clear Supreme Chancellor becoming Emperor, Republic becoming Empire, and that kind of change, and the Zillo Beast representing all of that. For me, I thought it was key. It's not just a fun reference to Clone Wars. It's a great one. I love Tech going, did you see episode? I love that kind of stuff. But he said, no, this was Supreme Chancellor. The guy we used to work for, that guy, he did this. And now look where he is now. So I think all that's kind of building in Hunter. And I think I get that from a certain point of view. He's unaffected by things. I've been in that situation. I'm not affected by violence. I'm not affected. I just, cool, part of life. Got it. I'm going to have lunch. And that can only take you so long when you realize, well, who am I and who am I in this world? And what am I going to do with all that? And not far-reaching stuff. You know who you are. We talk about Star Wars is always about like, hey, if you're a rock band, go use that to do something. So I love that Star Wars vision story. So I think, is Hunter having these exact words? No, but I think that's what I'm seeing represented in that final turn. And it's a big moment, but I agree with you on the Kino Loy connection, but it's also like, it's even one step. Next is him going, we're joining them. And I think that, anyways, I think it all ties to that Hemlock moment. I love that moment.
Yeah, no, it's a really great moment. There's lots going on that Hemlock conversation. We'll talk about some of it in canon. Nala says, I know what the Emperor Palpatine seeks to accomplish. I definitely want to dive into when we get into our canon discussion of what exactly that means. And Jimmy Simpson's performance is great. There's another Hunter line here that just really reminds us of who he is. He is stoic. The responsibility is on my shoulder, and my number one mission objective is keep the squad safe, particularly keep Omega safe, keep us alive, fed, out of prison, out of the ground. That's my primary mission objective, and I kind of lock everything else down. But he's also just a person of honor, right? When the Tech blows up the generator and they're safe from the Zillo Beast, but the Zillo Beast goes scampering quite cutely into the village.
Yes.
Hunter's got that great quote of, we're the ones who let it out. We have to neutralize it before it hurts anyone.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? Our mess, we clean it up, right? So for me, I think it's this combination of he's convinced himself we can just get by. But everywhere we go, we have to do something that compromises my honor a little bit, or we go somewhere where there is just a level of horror that I cannot abide looking away from. That was so much going on in the Gungi episode where Hunter's like, don't want to get involved. Hey, you crossed that line. Hey, you crossed that line. Yeah. Hey, you crossed that. Hey, I got like 3 lines and you crossed them all. So here we go. And I think it's been pushing him that he can't go anywhere, do anything, There's a one run that we see off screen, and I assume something with that he and Echo do with the Nerfs, I think, delivering Nerf nuggets, I think.
Right.
I'm sure something horrible happened then, too. There's this feeling that he can't go anywhere without having this shoved in his face. And what I thought was really interesting about the moment right before he says send the info to Rex and Echo is this isn't random. This isn't like the villagers on Sereno are having a hard time. This is the heart of his creation, of his family's creation, right? The Zillo Beast is kind of like them, a being that should have its own autonomy, but is being used and manipulated by Palpatine, like you were saying, but also that it's all tied up in cloning, and it's tied up in the destruction of their home, right? It's almost like it is personal to Hunter as well, that he's accepting kind of the larger, I can't get away from this, but also like this is what Palpatine is doing to all clones. He's trying to take away our autonomy, and he's destroying our home, and enough is enough.
Well, the bigger question of them in the Clone Wars and coming out of the Clone Wars, and I think they're at the first season dealt with what are we now? What's our identity? And bred for this, bred for fighting, And just that line with Tech of no, they're manipulating it to some sort of armor, it's a tactical thing. It's just that, and it's a creature, it's a beast, it's a being, and that in many ways I think you can connect with that. I love that that Hunter line you said there with the ones that let it out, we have to neutralize it before it hurts anyone. But I summarize that as we did this, but also we are this, and Hunter can see himself reflecting that without a doubt.
Yeah, and maybe a feeling like, we helped hand the galaxy to Palpatine.
Yeah, that's not necessarily fair to yourself, right? But that's also sometimes the bigger picture. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, not being mad at themselves for it, but being mad at the way that they were used and wanting to set something right that, even if it isn't their culpability, they were asked to knock it over. And without realizing how or why they did. And now I'm going to put it back then,
Yeah, we all might find ourselves part of something that you never questioned or you never thought of, and then new things come to light or new context, and you want to look forward and say, what can I do to not repeat that, even though I didn't necessarily make the choice to be in that situation or be part of that. It's just kind of the way.
Yeah, no, totally agreed. There's one other kind of big picture idea that I wanted to talk about, but I'm curious to see what else you pulled from the episode.
That was big stuff there, but I definitely, for me, the heart of Omega is this thing I want to focus on, and I talked about it. She just does not want to believe that the crew has perished, and I think that's a great default setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tech's got the facts. Tech's maybe's got the reality. I'm not painting Omega as naive, but I think you could toss it off as that, right? Like, oh, honey, come on. Yeah. But I just love that default. What a great default setting. And then she's severely affected by their death. And even at the very end of the episode, holding her stuffed animal, still reminding you of her age, but also just seeing this larger world. But I just like that as a driving force because I think without her around, obviously the Bad Batch doesn't grow, but I think they would process all of this differently. Clearly, we saw Tack talking about that with her in the previous couple episodes, but I think she's the pulse of this right now. Almost as if, not quite like Hunter's turn around going, we need to make the world better for this generation. But it could be, you could look at it like that, I guess, if you want. But I think her heart is key. It's almost what makes the Marauder home is her presence there. And I think it's very important. I just love the highlight of that. I thought it was really good. It was Michelle Ang with a great voice acting moment. I think the animation of her just like hate the crew. Like it wasn't. it was a horror reaction, but it was something that stuck with her the rest of the episode. Even as she was taking action, even though she was providing information on the clones, and at the end she still wasn't ready. It was almost like you talk about breaking points. She's seen them from episode 1 of season 2 on. Mm-hmm. Learning more and more about it, and I think she just can't shake it, and I think it's important to the overall picture, of course, as she's important to the overall story.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that focusing on Omega as both a bright light and somebody else who's maybe experiencing a different kind of breaking point is really astute. That she's seen a lot of horror, throughout the Bad Batch and this season, but this season is also focused on the moments where she finds wonder or victory or family, right? But she's had a bad run now where she lost Echo. She had a great moment of connecting with Tech, but then that I think she wants to believe in Sid, and then like her delivery, her cadence at the beginning of this episode, like we were stranded on that planet for days. She kind of can't believe that Sid truly left him like that, right?
Yeah.
And then she sees this real different kind of horror, right? She's seen a lot of violence or been involved in a lot of violence where she's actively engaged and trying to make a difference. And this is just, she's in a horror movie. She went from an action adventure movie to a horror movie where awful things are happening one after the other. It's kind of tied to her history and her knowledge, and she doesn't entirely understand why. And I think this is kind of not a growing up moment is in she's naive and she needs to grow up. I think it happens to all of us. It's not a judgment of Omega where you're growing up, and sometimes it still happens when you're already quite grown, of like, I've got my handle on how awful X can be. And then you experience it like, oh yeah, no, that's and it really felt that way of her holding that Lula, the Tuca doll, was not to me like a regression to childhood, but it was like a sadness of like,
yeah,
I want the world. I want people to care for one another and be there for one another. And this is horrible how far from how I imagine the galaxy should be to the way it is. And I just had that shoved in my face.
No. This ain't right. It's kind of fun. And again, going to the Dr. Hemlock thing. All right, so we got all this, and you can use your gifts to better the galaxy and follow that string out, and her heart is at the center of that.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think the last big idea that I wanted to talk about is also summed up by "it ain't right." There's a lot in this episode that is about the classic Star Wars theme of the flowing and organic versus the rigid and mechanical, things that are natural versus trying to absolutely control free-flowing natural things. You come across a curved line in nature, and Palpatine, for his own means, says, I'm going to force that line to be straight and bend at a 90-degree angle and nothing else. I'm going to make it happen. I mean, I am going to enforce my will and my needs on things that it is not right to. The entire episode, it actually reminded me again of Andor when Nemec is saying in the recording that Andor listens to in the final episodes of, that this level of oppression is not natural. It requires so much focus and control. And I thought this episode reminded us of that again in the big picture, right? Sheev is all over this episode without actually being in it. He's name checked, right? But he is trying to control everything in this episode. The Zillo Beast, which is a natural beast. He's trying to make it be and do something that it isn't. He is, even after he destroyed Camino, he is still trying to control all of their technology, control all of their people. I loved Lama Su's line of, it must be frustrating to have your resources, but lack the expertise to achieve your goals. a great zinger. He's trying to just, in general, control physical reality through cloning, literally physically make the galaxy and things in it to be what he needs. I love text line of, I suspect the Empire did not destroy the cities on Camino to end cloning. They merely wanted to control it. Everything about this episode is control. The Zillo Beast, Hemlock having a new plan now to control Nala. He tried emotional manipulation. He tried intimidation. Now he's going to threaten Omega, threaten a loved one. And this big idea of trying to control something from nature in an unnatural way, it's huge in monster movies, kaiju movies. It's almost always a disruption of a natural order, taking King Kong from his natural home and making him a spectacle, awaking Godzilla by unnatural weaponry. And the shadow kind of over this, almost the entire show of Bad Batch, is that Palpatine created the clones to serve his will, to be his tools. It worked up to a point, but now there's this frustrating to him nature where they want to make choices and defy him and have diverse experiences and perspectives. And it's that face tattoos, and he's trying to control them, and they can't quite be contained. It's such a big part of what this show is in its DNA.
Absolutely, it's including everything we've seen here in the Bad Batch of the programs to replace them and all that stuff, Rampart, all that stuff. Yeah, I think that's a great point. You could look the Bad Batch could look at the Zillo Beast and just say, "I get you, I feel you. We are you.
We really feel you. Yeah, we can relate." Yeah. Any other big picture thoughts that you wanted to share?
No. I think the one line I love, Tech has, Hunter, there's far more to this than we realize. That obviously simple line on the surface, it works, connects to the story. But again, just speaking to what's going on in their lives, the clones, everything you're talking about. Remember, we're still fresh out of the Clone War. We're still fresh out of the big switch from the Republic to the Empire, and not everyone's got all the details. Some of the details will never come to light, as we know. But I took that one as wrote that down as a line of just like, there's more here than meets the eye, right? We're through the looking glass here, people, and just adding the stakes and weight to the decisions that they need to make.
Yeah, it really is. Like, we thought this was very bad, but it turns out it could be even worse. Just the general galactic state of things, and their Palpatine's level of horror, and maybe their level of feeling some amount of responsibility for it.
Indeed. Absolutely.
Excellent. Oh, the other thing that, Palpatine tries to control is, the villagers who did nothing but see a thing. Chilling. Anyway, on that upbeat note, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to discuss all the great action comedy, comedy moments, and more in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Season 2, Episode 11 of The Bad Batch, Metamorphosis. We're going to talk action moments. There was a lot of action in this one. I thought, Ken, a lot of tension building up to action and action. Do you have some favorite moments?
Just want to start with the opening sequence. We highlighted the music earlier, but just everything about it. And like I said, this is a Star Wars version of things I have seen many times, right? That's just what happens. Like you start, there's something bad happening. There's a monster on the loose. You don't know. You go in the story. I don't mean that cynically. I mean that I love that Star Wars was like, yep, here's our version, and it's cool, and it's shot so well, and the animation. We always say, hey, we're going to stop saying Bad Batch is beautiful, but guess what? It's still beautiful, and everything about this opening sequence was full of terror, and that's its own kind of action.
Yeah, and it did a really good job of taking a victim, for lack of a better word, the being who is being preyed upon from our perspective, and starting with a real badass, right? Like, hey, if this was, just some random weakway or whatever, maybe it'd be scary. But the fact that it's a clone commando, is a really good job of upping the terror.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I love that opening sequence. I love the look up when the clone realizes that it's above him. I think one of my very favorite action moments is the first time that we get to fully see the Zillo baby through the eyes of the Bad Batch, and they're hearing it. The terror is building. There's been a lot of slow exploration in the first half of the episode that's really building the tension. But when that Zillo baby head pops down, it is upside down, slime dripping, electricity ripping, and slurping up a hand. That might be one of my favorite shots in Bad Batch. It's just so well done.
Yeah, I'd put the note too. Zillo Beast finishing up his meals. I described it, but I think there was some purpose behind it too. But it reminded me of the, not just the Rancor slurping up a Gamorrean guard, but that scene you and I have discussed before, the behind the scenes footage of George Lucas in the editing room of Return of the Jedi going, no, it should, like, he should do that. He should do that. So the Zillo Beast saw that video and was like, yep, I'm going to slurp it up.
Yeah, it's really well done shot, because yes, a lot of these are classic horror shots, but I like that this one kind of literally flipped the script a little bit, in that the Zillo Beast's head was upside down, so there's an extra amount of disorienting, and then like, wait, is that a hand? Oh, damn, that was a hand. Yeah. So very well done. What are some other action moments that spoke to you?
I put the caption of the Zillo was painful, was big, but it was such an epic sequence. You got, V-Wings coming in. You got Wrecker. You got the dogfight of Wrecker shooting. You got Star Cruisers. You got all these Star Wars things, the sounds, the visuals, and then the center of it is this monster. And it, of course, reminds you of the Clone Wars episodes of Zillo. It should. And here, the Zillo finally getting to its, full size and reaching it. And it was also painful to watch, based on a lot on the themes they're talking about. At that point, I think I'm rooting for him. The Beast again, you don't know. I agree with Hunter's. It could cause harm to someone else unintentionally. Totally right. Again, it's one of those things we have with Hunter. I think particularly I always bring up about Hunter of like, he's always got some points. He just maybe doesn't see through all the way. He just stops himself. Anyways, all that to say, it was a great sequence. I watched it 3 times and put that stat on the back of my baseball card. I just loved it. It was just epic.
It really did up the energy. There've been a lot of great action scenes in set pieces in Bad Batch, but the combination of, hey, we thought we were on one mission, one problem, contain the Zillo Beast so it doesn't hurt the villagers, but now suddenly kind of our worst fear, the Empire is on us, combining those beats was really great. In that whole sequence where the terror escalated for the Bad Batch, he's like, yeah, huge monster, also run, it's the Empire. Tech in Omega running out of that blast, and Tech grabbing Omega and doing that big spin behind the tree at the last minute, just as the explosion is about to eat them up. It's a great action move, like great choreography, like in terms of animation, like you could feel the physics of that, like it was live action. And there's been so much building up of the bond between Tech and Omega. It was really great to see Tech in that sort of protective role of grabbing her and keeping her safe. Yeah,
no, I like that. Good part.
Yeah. I think some of the shots, it's action, but it's also just mood, big mood. Every single shot of the Zillo Beast up on that tower with the moon in the background, roaring, swinging its horned tail, spiked tail at ships. So great. And then I feel really bad liking this shot, Ken. I don't like the shots where the beast is actually shot, because it bums me out. But the shot of it being pulled up into the ship with that glowing white light is, it's sad, but it's beautiful.
I tell you, I reacted to that too, because this even goes to like Han Solo having, some Rathtars, and I'm like, always like, how did that happen? We have bigger crew. Well, okay, but tell me how. And that was one of those, how do they even, I know it was tinier, but how are they even gonna get it on the ship at that point? Like when we meet it, it's like, maybe it's got a dog collar or Zillow collar. This is different. And I'm with you too. It's something about it. Very sci-fi. And also very like, oh, got it. They're prepared for anything.
Yeah, the light pouring out of the ship, I think, is really evocative of, late 70s, early 80s, sort of like, Close Encounters, like, what's going on up there? Shielding your eyes, kind of that white light pouring out. But I think it's also that, like, they've done such a great job building up the fear of the Zillo Beast. It is huge now. And here now at the end, it looks small and defenseless compared to the real beast of the Empire. I think that shot brings that out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. No, I loved it.
The Empire, the real beast. That's our controversial take for this episode.
Hot take on the bad bad.
Any more action moments before we move on to comedy, whimsy, weirdness?
No, I cheated and put it all in a big scene, an epic scene. But yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff in there.
But you're right. There, for me, like some of the dogfight stuff was great, but it was more the energy and the movement of the whole thing than one specific moment that was like, that's it. So very much agreed. Let's move on to comedy. There's definitely some comedy in this. I think a lot of it a little bit darker, which I'm just fine with. So where'd you go?
So the biggest moment, look, you and I talk often about how we identify with certain characters, right? Tech and the great tech essay out there. I don't know if I'll do a Wrecker essay ever, because it's confessing a lot of embarrassing things about it. So when Sid's offering first 30% and then 35%, I implore you all to go back and watch it. The animation, the directing, everything. Wrecker's reaction to 35% and smiling, he nods and looks at the team like, what a win. I don't negotiate ever. I don't ever in my life. You offer me the money, that's what you offer. I don't ask for more. That's what I get. And that's what, this is your rate. Okay. That's my rate. This is the food you bring me. This is it. I don't do any of that. Because my thought, like, even when I get dumped, I get broken up in the past, I'll be upset, but I know I'm going to be fine. So cool. I don't negotiate. I just go, okay. And I'm not saying that's a great trait. I'm just saying it's what I do. And I died laughing watching Wrecker go, 35%? Yeah. Oh no. Oh yeah. Okay. No, we want more. Just the best. Wrecker.
What I really loved about that whole sequence, because it goes on, right? He keeps thinking that percentage is good and looking happy, then checking in with the group, and then very quickly changing his body language to firm and unyielding to be with the group. It's beautifully. Everybody has their skills. That's part of what my essay is about. Is like this isn't the joke. Isn't Wrecker's an idiot, right? The joke is they're all different, and he's looking to the group to get the cue for how to handle this particular thing. Because if he was on his own, Sid would manipulate him.
Yeah. Look, it depends on myself. Like if I'm on with customer service and they're like, well, sorry, sir, we're going to charge you 3 times your bill. I go, okay, great. And then I'll cancel the subscription, right? Like I don't take it all the time. I just like, great. This is what the moment is for us. I'm just going to take what's offered and we'll deal with it. Anyways, I got to learn. Wrecker and I got to learn, but it was hilarious.
What I really loved about it is there could have been a choice to make that much bigger. You could miss that because what's going on is important. It is the breaking of the relationship. Sid's got some funny lines in there. You're wondering where they're at and the rest of the Bad Batch is at and how angry they are. So there's a lot going on. So you could miss it, and I even caught some of it later. And then it's like toward the end of the sequence, like, wait, he's been doing this the whole time and rewound. Right.
Yeah.
It's just really great to sometimes have something be small, right? Because you could have had this be a whole big bit. You could have isolated Wrecker in the shot and made this a bit. And I like that sometimes it's just a funny little nuanced thing in the background.
Yeah, it was just it's understanding the character, understanding the comedy of it. And you're right. This could have been what eyes poke out. Woo, 35%. Well done.
Yeah. And it preserves it makes it so you can have the fun comedy and the character building, but the scene, the heart of the scene stays the same. If that's this conflict that Sid has pushed them too far.
Yeah, indeed.
Along those lines, I do like Sid's line, "You're fine now, aren't you?" After being confronted with stranding them for multiple days because she's just had too much on her plate.
I'm glad you highlighted that. I forgot about that. Actually, that is hilarious. That's hilarious. Oh God.
Yeah, it's just and it is the kind of thing that people who are not treating you great in your life would say of like, well, yeah, of course, yeah, I hit you with my car, but you're fine now, aren't you? Like,
why are you upset?
That's not the point. Yeah. For me, there are a lot of great Tech moments. I did like Tech coming across what is a horrifying sight that is immediate mortal danger for him. The Zillo baby sitting there, mouth open, sucking up all that electricity. And he takes the time to say, fascinating.
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to, I knew that would speak to you, obviously. But it's just, it's like, but it's the good version, right? This isn't like some dark, mad scientist. This isn't, Count Rugen from Princess Bride. This is for posterity. It's just Tech being Tech in the best way.
Yeah. Just wanting to understand and going like, it feeds off of electricity, clearly. Okay, good to know. That's fascinating. Wow, that's different. The next one for me is the one that you and I think have already talked around a little bit, but Omega's crew reaction. So what are your thoughts on that one? The eating.
It just I don't know. It just spoke to me on a deeper level. Poor Omega, but just everything about it, just the pacing. The detail.
Yeah. That's what really spoke to me is it was comedy on top of comedy, but also horror. It was that kind of dark, nuanced. Sometimes Star Wars is like, hey, here's a heavy beat. And then in the next moment, here's a pretty silly beat, right? Yeah. But this was that sort of laced of like, that is funny. And also I feel a little bad laughing, which I sometimes like that. I like Tech. This was, even though Tech and Omega have had a little bit more of a heart-to-heart, Tech's gonna Tech, right? Tech's gonna Tech. So having no particular gentleness with his analysis of, given the fact that the crew was most likely eaten by the creature, I doubt it is currently hungry. If that was it, that would have been a winner. That would have been a banger of a comedy line for me. And then Omega's quiet. It ate the crew. Great. Then Wrecker, how is that helping Tech as she falls back into Wrecker?
Yes.
And then the clincher of Omega's delivery of, that's the delivery of processing it out loud. Like, I don't even know if Omega even knows she's talking out loud at that point, when she has that great delivery of it. It ate the crew.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. It's just, it is yet another tribute to Michelle Ang's delivery.
She's so great. Yeah. I mean, obviously, T. Bradley Baker is great. And there's a lot of people out there praising Michelle Ang, but let's not forget her because she's just killing it.
Yeah. Any other comedy beats for you?
Let's see. In the dogfight, Hunter asks, "Did you get it?" And Records, no.
Record. There was a moment where he's maybe going to lie, and then he can't.
Yeah. It's Sean Connery in the plane. They got us, son. Love that. In Indy. Also, Wrecker happy, funny electro stuff. Again, going to the idea of like, you never negotiate. Wrecker's not negotiating with that situation. He's just like, look what I found. The fact that why is it there? What's happening? Not a good situation. Electro staff. Love it.
Yep. Yep, and then the fact that he doesn't get to hold on to it because the Zillow baby eats the high volt electrostaff is pretty damn great. I did spend just a little bit of time. I got, as I've shared on the podcast and on one of our YouTube shorts, I got this great Aurebesh translation guide, which is meant to be a giant keychain, but I took the keychain off. Lucky to pick it up at Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland. So I'm trying to memorize and read some of the Aurebesh. So there are sometimes it's like, ooh, what's the secret? And it really is like, on text screen, it says like analysis complete. Like, okay, fair enough.
Right.
But on that final screen in that important scene where Tech has all of the information up about the Zillo Beast, there's some fun stuff. It says Zillo Beast growth level 6. I don't know out of how many. But then at the bottom, it says threat level 10.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So a nice sense of the scale of what threat level will the Zillo Beast get to.
You and I know Alex is good at this. Even our buddy Kevin Smith spent some time with Aurebesh. How long does that take at this point? I'm fascinated by that because I'd love to, but I always just go, I get one letter in, I go, I can't. This is good. Someone's got to tell me.
It's getting faster because, I think everybody learns differently, obviously. But for me, there are some of the Aurebesh characters that are really distinct. So I have those memorized. Like the A looks like a K. So anytime you see a K, that's real quick, right? I have the S and the T memorized. I have the E memorized. I have all the real distinctive ones memorized. So I can pretty quickly just by a glance play Wordle and go, well, I know these letters. And then there are a bunch of letters that are kind of different versions of sort of a circle or a bent circle or an interrupted circle. In those, I have to pick up my little guide and figure it out.
That's
so
fair.
I'm not sight reading yet by any means. It's still taking me a minute.
I know Alex has said over the years he's gotten better too. But I'll hats off to you. I love that stuff. I love it.
It's just so fun to me. It's just like the heart of just the fun of disappearing into Star Wars and frankly just being nerdy about it. Like, ooh, I can be, if I want to, I can pause and I can go even deeper and be in on the secret. And like, they don't bury narrative clues in there, right? You're not going to find here's what the Emperor is cloning. It was down in the screen. Like, they're not going to do that. It's flavor stuff, right?
Yeah, it is indeed. It is indeed.
Threat level 10. What threat level is the Chihuahua in the background?
Baxter woke up for his nap, and I'm babysitting the dogs, and so he's very happy about the Aurebesh.
Excellent. Let me know if any Chihuahua attention is needed. All right, we're going to move on then to favorite Star Wars canon lore connections to other stories. I thought there was kind of a lot of really interesting stuff in this episode. Let's start with, the Zillo Beast. It's pretty big. Reviewed. I didn't fully rewatch the episodes, but I reviewed to really remind myself, and it is the story of the Zillo Beast that it is awakened by testing an electroproton bomb on Malastare. It is defeated by a toxin made of Malastare fuel, which they surmise is what killed the Zillo Beast's ancestors. So the entire canon story of this creature is just trying to live its life, and now this kind of clone version is existing, much like our clones that we love, to be made into a weapon. How did you feel about that sort of tragic history of the Zillo Beast, about the way that story is finally being followed up?
It's set up so well in those episodes. Again, I talked about just having not engaged. You could maybe even appreciate creature features in horror films and all that kind of stuff. I just wasn't in that world in the headspace as a film fan back in the day, but. Just reevaluating and appreciating the Zillo Beast episodes on a different level, thanks to us, our discussion, I should say, on Clone Wars Report. I loved it, and so I was in a better position to get all the themes we're talking about. But it's such a great use of this showing up. It's not just some random. It'd be cool. The Zillo Beast. Now, in a writing meeting on a whiteboard, maybe it starts like that. But to see this point of just the great use of it, even the return of Gunji was done in such a wonderful way, relating to the character and the story and the themes of what the show's trying to get to. So it just makes so much sense. A year ago, I forget when we did those episodes. Time flies, but prior to that, I never would have dreamed of connecting the Zillo Beast with the plight of the Clone Wars and the clones themselves, I should say. And I just loved the use of it. So again, it wasn't just a check on the box. It was a continuation of a theme started in those episodes. And I love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that it made its return here. There's some great stories of interviews, I think, or maybe questions at panels. It's on the Zillow Beast's Wikipedia page for anybody who wants to check it out. But like fans have been on Dave Filoni since the Rebels, like, okay, you're bringing things back from the Clone Wars. Give us the Zillow Beast story. Such a great part of the Clone Wars where, Palpatine has, the big plan is underway. He's making sure it stays on track. And then there's episodes where he's kind of got like, I'll check this out too. Hey, how about kidnap some Force-sensitive babies so they can help me predict the future? Hey, what if I can actually break Yoda's spirit before I even do Order 60? He's like, it didn't work out. And this is one of those many threads of like, okay, but that was kind of just a total cliffhanger of he's going to clone this for armor. Is it going to turn up? Right. And I really love that. It seems like maybe the technology was here to make it happen with this great Clone Wars style animation and the budget that they have and the technology that they have. But yeah, just absolutely tying in to the clones story was really, really satisfying. And it has me wondering that it feels like the story of the Zillow baby in particular still isn't done. That there's often this story when we have heroes like the Bad Batch and they're in a specific time, and and we know that Wrecker doesn't blow up the Death Star, right? He's not going to have that big win. But what the animated shows have done, I think, sometimes is like give us a part of the story that we didn't know. So in my mind, my speculation, and I'm fine if this doesn't come to pass, but like, what if this is a part of their story? What if the Zillo Beast becomes kind of like a symbol to them? And they say, you're not weaponizing this. And they successfully stop the Emperor from making armor out of the Zillo Beast's hide. And every stormtrooper that we see fall in the original trilogy to a blaster bolt from Princess Leia is because the Bad Batch had a win.
I think that's a big giant idea, and I love it. And gives it kind of a connective thread and not a simple surface way. Just a fun way, be rewarding for those that know, of course, and it works. And I like this. You're pitching a Zillow clan, right? You got the Mudhorn clan, you got the Zillow clan, and it makes a lot of sense. No, again, it would completely work on them identifying with this creature, and it being so clearly tied to the cloning aspect of it all.
Yeah. So it excited me that it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't random. It was something that is central to their lives and could maybe continue. Totally agreed on that.
Yeah.
Let's talk Scorch and the Clone Commandos. Scorch is originally from the Clone Commando video game that many fans love. He was put into traditional Lucas canon back in the day when he appeared in the Savage Opress arc of Clone Wars. And then, of course, he had a big appearance in season 1 of Bad Batch in the episode where they rescue the clone Gregor. And then he's the one with the orangish yellow markings on his armor. We see him a couple times. He's the one who is reporting to Hemlock at the end of the episode. Part of the reason I wanted to point out Scorch and the Clone Commandos, so much of this episode, as we agreed, was about people being pushed too far. Do you think Scorch or any of the Clone Commandos could be pushed too far? They are being asked. Scorch himself says the villagers are detained and they'll be dealt with, which is incredibly ominous that they are imprisoning forever villagers who did nothing, or maybe even worse, murdering them.
Yeah.
But then there's also this the next step for this project that's for the Emperor's higher purpose is to go after a child who is also a clone like you. Do you think there's any possibility of this being a breaking point for Scorch?
I absolutely do, because there's a couple beats, but one in particular that it's subtle. It's good foreshadowing if you want to look at it that way. The camera pushing in a beat to where I had either was like, because I couldn't remember the name Scorch off the top of my head, to be honest, but I was like, what's going on there? Like there's something like so other than it's just a reintroduction to the stage, right? In the crowd applause, hey, there's Scorch. I do think you're right. And I think it makes a lot of sense because the clone commandos we have to also deal with canonically as well, I think, right? And that, so the why of that and how they're going to make that happen is intriguing to me. But I think you're right. I really, it's a fun speculation, but where it could go, who's going to talk sense to them when those masks come off? Those are cool, intimidating masks. When they come off, who's under there and what's the connection? This is the Cody of it all. We still have the big crosshair thing hanging out there. I love that there's not a lot of crosshair this year. It might be weird to say, but I like that that's still coming, that this is could be all part of it. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I'll follow you on that thread.
Oh yeah. And they could meet Crosshair, just out in the galaxy as a lone bounty hunter now, because he's probably been kicked out, right? It's over. The clones are done.
Yeah.
But the commandos are clearly still of some kind of use. Yeah, there's that shot of the clone commandos arriving and deploying on the planet. And Scorch hangs back. And to me, you can read that shot as he's the commander and he's just watching his troops go out. But there is something in the stillness of the shot that the first time I saw it, I was like, ooh, doubt? Yeah. Totally ambiguous. I'm not saying it's certainly there, but I think it's one way to potentially read it and hint at the future.
Yeah. Like I said, it could just easily be like, hey, everyone, that's Scorch. But there's just something about it. I feel you.
Hey, everybody, that's Scorch. Yeah. This location rat, Mount Tantus on the planet Wayland, was featured brought into canon in the first season of Bad Batch, but it is, of course, originally from the heir to the Empire. It's the Emperor's Storehouse cloning facility, so there's all that going on. But I really wanted to talk, Ken, about kind of Camino and its fate and everything going on with the cloning technology. We get a couple of really interesting quotes in this conversation between Nala Se and Hemlock. Nala Se says, "I know what Emperor Palpatine seeks to accomplish and will not have my cooperation." Hemlock, kind of reading to me like a pretty true zealot, says, the technology, it will now serve a higher purpose, the Emperor's purpose. So what did you take from those conversations? Did you take that as Nala Se and Hemlock saying the Emperor means to control the galaxy violently with military and technological power, and everything in the galaxy is his to control, in terms of the clones and armor from the Zillo Beast? Or did you take it as more like Nala Se might have been working on a side project to make him some extra bodies?
I think it's a great question, because I think initially it and I think it does play a little bit with the Zillo Beast, the armor and that kind of stuff. I do think it's that, but why wouldn't it be the other thing? All right. And it's fun to get there, get into speculation. I'm still in a spot where I don't necessarily think anything in Mando directly and explicitly leads to the front door of Exegol, right? But it could, but also it could. Who knows? But it's all getting dangerously close, right? It's all, and the fact that even some of the stuff with Omega, I knew a lot, but she had another office,
we saw. We saw that, and we saw in the Cad Bane episode, some off-world stuff happening.
So I'm with you on that. I think that has a lot to do with it, which is part of, I think the breaking point is her world, her home, her culture destroyed. But again, following the string out. We're just here to help make the galaxy better for the Emperor's purpose. That's a capital E and capital P on Emperor's purpose for me. And
Yeah, I'm very curious, because I do feel like, it could just be hey, we're having a real conversation between us, the Emperor's purpose, and I know what he really wants to do is we're not buying any of the propaganda of, we're just going to have a little bit more order and security so everybody can be safe and we can have peace. We all know what he wants to do. He will control everything himself personally. That's the purpose, and we're not we're not agreeing to any of the propaganda. Or there's that deeper level of, those clone bodies that are rotting away and being perfected on Exegol came from somewhere. And I don't need anything explained. I certainly don't need anything quote unquote fixed. But since both Bad Batch and the Mandoverse are dabbling in it, Pershing's direct connection to all this. Where and when did the Sith cultists start getting their vats of creepy going?
Yeah.
Exactly what Moff Gideon is up to, whether he is tied to I'm still curious to see whether Moff Gideon personally is tied to, the unknown regions and the First Order and making Snoke or trying to get bodies for the Emperor, or if Moff Gideon's just about Moff Gideon,
Right.
I think there's lots of interesting story to be told, but I really welcome it sort of it's all attached, and it all gets into these interesting areas of Star Wars that haven't been explored as much with the Sith cultists and their unnatural science.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of untapped potential on that. I'm with you. I would like, even if it does go to the front door of Mexico, I would really be on board for that. I think the Moff Gideon angle of it all, just kind of power out for power, just kind of works for me more in that regard. But again, Pershing, the midichlorian, the M count, excuse me, we don't say midichlorian around here. The M count, we do, but they don't. It all could potentially be pushed up, and then this just makes sense. Again, it makes sense because this is a long game for the Emperor. He was probably a kid in his room studying this stuff already.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised to see a young Pershing. That would be fun and interesting. Any other canon stuff that you wanted to mention?
No, just little things. The Commando's back and the V-Wings anytime they show up, all that kind of cool stuff. But yeah, we hit the big ones there, and this was it. We were waiting for this one, and we got it.
Yeah, and the ongoing pain of seeing the gunships is the ships of the the baddies.
Yeah.
Was there anything in this episode that you disliked or questioned?
Could have been 5 minutes longer. I don't know. This was they've been hitting a lot of home runs. This was a perfectly crafted song on the album. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. The mid-season two-parter really raised the stakes and felt central because of this is the ultimate fate of the clones. This is Omega seeing the truth up close. But this one also felt like, wow, this is the episode that turns everything on its head, that makes it from the Bad Batch just kind of having to keep their head down to their worst fears happening. They are being hunted, and Omega is being hunted as a pawn. It really escalated things in a great way. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch on?
No, just highlighting again the music of Kiner and crew, man. That just what fun they must have with this show weekly.
Right? When the scripts show up and like, what's the vibe? Western kaiju? Is there? Can we do a Western kaiju episode? That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two things. I didn't really know where to put it, but I really liked the great horror fake out of the noise behind the wall. And then that little droid pops out and says, danger, danger.
Yeah.
That was great. And then I also wanted to shout out one of the cloning techs, Amiri Carr, is played by Keisha Castle-Hughes, Queen Apolna from Revenge of the Sith, and some other stuff.
And yeah, Game of Thrones as well. And what the Whale was their first big break. Love that. Yeah, love that. Good call there.
Excellent. So we are going to wrap up with a fun question, as we always do. If you could have a figure or merch of any character idea from this episode, who or what do you want?
I want a lamp that's the Zillow, and its mouth is open, and that's where you put the light bulb.
And the electricity just sparks out.
Yeah, that's what I want. You don't even need just put that there.
Oh, yeah. A big standing lamp with a massive Zillo Beast standing on the top would be great. But I'm going to go with my Zillo Beast eaten toy I've mentioned before on Force Center, but it's been a while. I had a weird goat toy when I was growing up that had like a couple different foods, but one of them was plastic linked hot dogs. And you pumped the goat's tail and it made the goat swallow the hot dog, and then very upsettingly, there's no non-upsetting way to resolve this toy, but you opened the goat's stomach and took the wiener speck out of its gut. I want that, but there's a little baby in a clone arm.
That'd be awesome.
Yep.
All on board.
Yep.
Let's scare the kids out there. Let's do it.
Extremely upsetting, much like this really great episode of the Bad Batch. Ken, do you want to let people know where they can find us?
Hey, absolutely. We are the Force Center Podcast, and we can be found on Twitter at Force Center Pod, on Hive Social as well. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube. We're doing a lot of fun stuff over there on YouTube. Shorts, essays. Joseph's got the great tech essay. Check that out. Live shows and all that stuff over on YouTube. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. Follow me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com for more. Shows like The Blathering, Pop Rock, and Radio are on there. Joseph, where can they find and follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can find me on YouTube. Check out my short films and comedy there. Just search for Joseph Scrimshaw on YouTube. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for the Zillow baby, and the Chihuahua who needs attention, this has been the Bad Batch Report.
Baxter!
Force Center.